It's not necessarily that I don't want to be authentic. I'm basically using people pleasing to escape the fact that I don't know who I am. Hello dear friends, it's Carly and welcome back to my channel. And this video, I don't have like a script or a plan or anything like that, but I do have a desire to spend some time and do some chatting about what even is authenticity. I'm feeling very strongly about it actually. Get me a chair. So do you ever have those times where you're just going along thinking, you know, all is right in the world, and then all of a sudden it comes to you that you're doing exactly the thing where you need to follow your own advice? Like, do you ever catch yourself like giving advice to other people that then like you later realize like, I think I could take that and I could do something with that, you know? Like, I'm a big advice giver. I really enjoy the act of giving advice. And so many times in my life, I've been frustrated that like the person who the advice is for isn't being productive, like with the advice that I gave them. Like, not recently, this is just a hypothetical. Happened to me a lot, like earlier on. And now it's like, how about I take the advice that comes out of my own mouth and see what I can make happen with it. So the specific instance that happened was in my sacred circle that I host on the fourth Tuesday of every month. In case you're interested, there's a link in the description to join that. There is a person who I don't have favorites or anything, right? Like you try not to, and they're all good in their own ways, but her story has been so fun to watch. Like, just the transformation of where she is and what she's going through. Like, it's just been really fun to watch. And she's talking about like she's getting to this point where the pull to turn on my camera and record is getting stronger and stronger. Like, I can feel that that's about to happen. And without even thinking about it, my instant reaction to her is, why not turn it on? Like, why not turn on the camera? What's stopping you from turning on the camera and just doing a practice run? This is my thought process. Okay, so that was this morning. And then give the universe like a solid hour to like smack me upside the face with like, maybe I could use a dose of that. Because this morning, the unfolding that happened after that was I found this video on a channel that I love, cannot recommend it enough. I've mentioned it many times on my channel. The channel's Healthy Gamer, GG, and it's a guy who calls himself Dr. K, and he is teaching the gamer generation about mental health, which, oh, gosh, like combining your passions, like he's just such a perfect example of that. But he had a video this morning, and the link is for this in the description box as well, talking about like basically why authenticity is hard, and like why we don't just be authentic, you know, like why wouldn't you just do that? And it's simple, right? Like, no, it's not simple at all. And like he goes through it for like 35 minutes, and it is a wonderful video. I wouldn't even try to like paraphrase what he offers in that. So many good stories and points. Plus he's like a trained psychiatrist, like medically trained. He just happened to like quit Harvard to be a Twitch streamer. That was his particular career trajectory, which again, I think is a great example of authenticity. It's like, so anyways, so that's what got me thinking, right? Like that was definitely what stirred up the dust, so to speak. And from there, I like felt this huge desire to basically do what I'm doing right now, like get on here and try to like make a package, like make a video, like, you know, normally I've gotten to the point where it's weird because in my videos, I typically have to have like a direction and a title even, and like here's what this is, and then I'll sit down and make a video. And on my podcast, I approach it very differently, where it's like I'll just feel like talking and go and make a podcast and not really have a destination. And I'm usually like in awe of what comes out of those self-revelation type sessions, like just between me and me, like even if those podcast episodes don't always like see the light of day, usually they do. And that's part of my authenticity practice and owning my authentic self. And obviously I name my channel that. Like I think about it a good big chunk of like, what even does this mean? And as I was having this desire to do this and like try to describe authenticity and like what does that even mean, almost instantly there was like all of these reasons why, okay, never mind, I don't want to do that because of this and this and this and this. And it was so interesting to almost kind of like have this overarching like observer type position as I watched the desire come, and almost naturally in response there was like this wave of this is just what came in response. And what the wave was like, no, because of this and this and this. And the reasons, just to kind of like make it a little more practical, like the main one was like, one, I'm not a trained professional. Like I'm very much a student of life. Like I'm not even at an institution. Like I'm teaching myself as I go based on my own felt experience. So that's just maybe like a big disclaimer to lay down as far as like helpful to let me continue then to open up and see what I want to say about authenticity, because I do have a lot of hours invested in reflection on the subject, you know? And what he said resonated. He did such a good job of, like, the very first part of the video is an extended, like so often what he does at the beginning is like a breath of fresh air and a breath of relief, a breath of like just soothing and settling and slowing down even the need for it to be different. Like being authentic is hard. Like that's the whole beginning of what he describes of like, basically we're trained to perform in certain ways so that we get certain reactions in other people. Like when we're little and we're a sponge, and like especially those first 7 years and learning how to be in the world, we naturally soak up the ways of the bigger ones around us, because typically most people in the world are very conditional in how they react and respond to things. So like, you know, when I did this, when I drew on the wall, my mom went ballistic. She screamed at me, she hit me maybe, like there was punishment. So now I know that this behavior is linked to this kind of reaction, and I've formed that connection in my little brain. And now I'm gonna hold myself back. I might actually not draw on the walls anymore because I don't want to see that. And almost at the same time, you got to chuckle, because I think there's parents and certain parenting perspectives, obviously not everybody, that's like, yeah, that's the point. I'm trying to scare them into not doing it anymore. And basically what ends up happening though is that we get scared out of being our authentic self. So like when we have people react negatively to us, we shut down who we really are, and instead we show them something that they can react nicely to. So like a perfect example of this is like, I'm 5 years old and I'm singing in my grandma's house because there's this song in my head, and like that just happens, and like there's music inside me and it wants to be sung. So I'm singing and I'm really like putting my all into it, and she's like, hey, Carly, that doesn't sound nice. And I know that she meant so well, but it's like that. It's like I showed my heart and soul, And I got a reaction that just like crushed the heart and soul in that moment. And it's taken me up until like the last year or two to like openly let other people hear my singing voice. That's like coming back out of its shell now, that like I feel safe to let that side of myself be seen in certain situations. So like it's a work in progress. But yeah, it's like when we're little and we get certain negative reactions that hurt us, it naturally leads to, okay, don't show that anymore, and avoid the pain is like the kind of normal human response is to minimize pain. Like that's part of our survival drive, I gotta think. So that emotional pain though, like that rejection from showing who you were, speaking up and saying what was true for you, and then it blew up in your face. I think we all, haven't we all had moments of that? Like experiences of being authentic didn't go well, you know? And that's essentially his point, is like, yeah, it's a risk. Yeah, this is probably gonna be like a rambling mess, and I'm just gonna go with it because we'll see what we get out of the end. But so that's very much what stirred me up this morning, was his video. Highly recommend. It's very much worth the watch, no matter where you are on the spectrum of practicing your authenticity. One of the pieces that I don't really think he touched on, now that I think about it, which is interesting. This is why we ramble. This is why we talk even before we have a plan, because good things can come out. I feel like my journey with authenticity started with even making my authentic self conscious. Like I was such a people pleaser that I don't even know who the fuck I am. Like, what is that? Nagi. Like, it's so, okay, so yes, let me tell a little bit of this piece of the story where I came up with the name of Owning Authenticity. This is kind of where it came and like shifted into full gear as far as my vision of like what I wanted to do with this YouTube channel. That idea came out of starting my podcast, and starting my podcast came out of a yearly mantra that I had started using a couple months before that. For 2021, my mantra was the year of speaking truth. And every morning I would write the date at the top of the page in my journal, and next I would write 2021, the year of speaking truth, and then I would move on with my day. It wasn't like some big production, it was just that simple. Touch onto it every morning and then move on. And what ended up happening was like, I really did think that speaking our truth was gonna be about opening your mouth and saying the thing. I really thought that like speaking my truth was gonna be about saying more stuff in more heated situations. Like I was gonna actually vocalize who I was. And so I had that intention. I was totally ready to do it. I was ready. I was willing. Put me in, coach. I know it's psychological, but it's all come on, Jim Carrey, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective? No, just me? Okay, can't be. Sound off in the comments. Like if you grew up in the 90s, like come on, a little bit of Pet Detective. I got most of that movie like completely memorized. So anyways, yeah, I was totally ready. And as I got into some of those heated situations and those moments of like, okay, here we are, it's time, say the thing. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know what's real. I know it's not this, but as far as like, okay, now say what it is then, I don't know. And that's gotta be like common maybe, of like, it's not necessarily that I don't want to be authentic, but I don't know who I am well enough to like try to say it out loud to somebody else. Like I'm drawing a bit of a blank. Like you're gonna have to give me a minute or a year, couple years. that's where I'm at now. Like that, setting that mantra of the year of speaking truth was January 1st, 2021 was when I started working with that. And so here we are 15, 16 months later, and that is very much the stage that I'm still at, is like getting clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer about who even am I? What even am I? Like, what do I believe? Like, who do I want to be in the world? Who do I want to show up as? Like, basically like every single answer to the questions on that list are like giant question marks. And so I realized, like, okay, so I'm not speaking my truth because I want to preserve their feelings. I'm basically using people pleasing to escape the fact that I don't know who I am. I'm going with their flow because I have no flow. Like, and that's a stark realization. That's like, it was definitely different than what I thought, as far as I had set this mantra at that time, because I definitely had come to the conclusion that the barrier that I'm currently facing in my life, which, you know, life can feel like kind of a system of barriers, if you will, like a system of initiations. And this particular one, I feel like the reason that I'm getting like stuck at this piece of the game is that when I feel discordant with what's going on, I don't say anything about it. I just go along until I explode, typically, until it's like enough is enough and there's like a door slam type ending where it's over. I'm done. And I walk away and I have the rest of my life and I don't look back. Like, that's just how my energy works. And exactly, that's not the story I want to tell. That's just how my energy works. Like, that's how it used to work. That's how I had like kind of settled, as far as like, that's how my energy works. You know, I just explode and then it's over and there's nothing I can do about it. And there's absolutely something I can do about it, but it exists way back when I feel discordant and I need to say something in that moment. I need to not let that go. And that was the part where I finally, you know, I had recognized that, like, okay, I can see that that's the pattern of what I'm doing. I'm being inside a moment where I want to disagree and I'm not allowing myself to. I'm doing whatever they want to do. And okay, fine, no judgment, that's where I'm coming from. But I don't like the result that I'm getting. Like, I'm doing it this way and I see what's happening and I don't like it. So let me try to do it a different way. And so out comes the year of speaking truth and this mantra that I felt like, great, I'm ready to say it and I'm going to say it. I'm ready. Give it like 8 weeks and I'm like, I don't know who I am. I don't know. And that's like right when I started my podcast, after like, it was probably 4 or 5 episodes of my podcast, like basically it just popped out one day. Like, I want to own my authenticity. I want to just like be imperfect and lean into it and not let it slow me down. Like, just, you know, do my best and do what it is that I want to do. Because like, okay, I might have started to say this earlier, but I'm gonna pop it back in here, where one of the reasons that I was hesitant to even make this video this morning was because I was like, I don't know how to define authenticity. Like, that was my immediate thought, was like, I don't know. I mean, I know what I've learned about it so far, but I can't say definitively what it is. And what if I say something that it is, and then later I learn that that's not what it is, and then I have to like, you know, retract that earlier thing, and then I have to like correct it, and like all of that was like, whoa, whoa, that's way overcomplicating everything. Like, that's my perfectionistic tendencies coming to the surface for like another level of healing. Yeah, there was like a softening of my self-acceptance that just, oh God, you can even feel it like coming off me. Like, there was a softening of, you're allowed to be imperfect. You're allowed to say, here's what I know today. And then you're allowed to learn some more. And then you're allowed to say, here's what I know today. Like, just keep doing it. Just keep, like, this is a subject, authenticity, that literally moves energy inside of me. I let the dust settle in myself so that I could see, like, who am I? Because I don't know. How can I speak my truth if I don't know what my truth is? Like, get what I'm saying? Right? Like, right? I don't know. Like I said to Dolly this morning, like, I don't want you to tell me I'm right. I definitely don't, unless you resonate. And in which case, I still don't want you to tell me I'm right. I want you to describe your resonance to me. I want you to tell me, like, what else does this make you think of? Like, what arms and fingers and toes come off of that resonance, and what else does it bring you? And that, I'll take it all day long. And if you don't agree, if you see it differently, like, tell me that too. Because all I'm doing, like, my authenticity, my speaking my truth, like, all I'm doing is saying what I can see is true. And that's, you know, I'm not convincing anybody of anything. I'm not trying to get them to agree with me. That's like a loop that I can get caught in, that former people pleaser, that, like, I don't want you to be mad at me. I don't want to cause drama. I don't want to rock the boat. Like, you know, there's like a real resistance in me to people being mad at me, to the point where, you know, I work with beliefs like reincarnation and past lives, to where I believe I've brought in memories of, like, you know, being authentic in a past life and being physically injured over the deal. And I think there's a lot of us that are just naturally, like, kind of afraid of being seen as who we really are. And kind of going full circle then with back to the Dr. K video, there's a reason. There's a reason. Like, we could all trace back to our childhood as far as how our authentic self was rejected or discounted or belittled or anything like that can really put a dent in things, that's real. And that there's a reparenting process. There's a, you know, finding your authentic self process. There's a self-love journey process. Like, these are kind of all similar ideas that are getting at, like, now who you are on your spiritual path. Like, now who I am is someone who has spent years working on myself. I've spent years basically, I mean, depending, like I said, depending on where you want to start this, maybe I didn't say that, who knows? It's hard to tell what happens inside my brain versus what I say out loud. But depending on where you want to start this story, it's like, what was my starting point? Well, there was a time longer ago than, you know, the 2021 affirmation that was like, this was, oh man, this was another one of those initiations, was when I got engaged back in 2014. It was December of 2014 that I got engaged. And those first couple months that I was engaged, my would have been mother-in-law was transformed. The engagement triggered something in her, and she's now having her own kind of shadow work experience. I didn't have that language or any of these tools at that time. I was very much in over my head, but this is what, you know, the dominoes that fell, if you will. So she's triggered having her own shadow experience, and her shadow experience triggers my shadow experience, and basically, like, pushes me into that situation where I was in such a discordant energy. Like, I so strongly disagree with what you're saying, and I, like, felt like I couldn't not, like, stand up for myself, essentially. And I feel like that's kind of what's at the heart of reparenting, is like being your own parent, standing up for what's right for you. And basically, this person is treating me in a way where there became this parent of me who was able to stand up to her to say, that is not true about me. You're thinking things about me that are flat out not true. And that does not sit well with me. So I got the idea. Okay, well, she's misunderstanding me, so let me write her an email. Let me put this down into words. There's my bottle. So that it's right there in front of her. I just basically had taken all of the blame and responsibility and basically got to the conclusion that I must not be explaining myself clearly, and that's why she doesn't understand me. I must not be showing her clearly enough who I am. And if I can be more clear about who I am, then she will understand. And that was my logic, and here I go. I opened my fresh new email and I'm gonna write it out. Not at all what happened. I opened that fresh email and it was like, who am I? What do I say? What is, like, as a person who's highly mutable and changes all the time, it's like, that is the downside. It's like, who am I? What does that even mean? Like, I am an amalgamation of what I've experienced so far, and I continue to have new experiences all day, every day. So I'm a work in progress at best. So when it goes to, I feel like I need to stand up for myself to somebody else, or I need to explain myself to somebody else, like, I was ready and unable. And so I think like all of this kind of highlights one point of authenticity, is that to be able to represent your authentic self, you do have to know who the authentic self is. And that all by itself can be such an undertaking that I would like to not make light of it. The gift of that experience with my would have been mother-in-law was not that I got her to understand me, therefore we had a great relationship and it was all happily ever after. Like, I feel like a lot of times we can go into a situation like that with thinking, I want to fix this with my mother-in-law. Like, I want to work it out with her. And for me, that was not the closure that I received out of that situation. I wrote her the email and she responded and said, thanks. I spent like weeks on that email, and it was long and it contained my heart and soul. And she said, thanks. And I'm like, okay. But by that point, I had already gone down the rabbit hole of, who am I? What am I about? How can I put this into words? How can I get more clear and even understand for myself who I am? Like, that gift of being inspired to go down that rabbit hole, that was in the very first part of 2015. That was probably like one of my first identity crises of like, who am I and what am I? And the conclusion that I've come to is as simple as, like, I am a reflection of the energy that I feel in this moment. And that's overly simplified from the fact that the energy that I feel in this moment is an amalgamation of the experiences that I've had in this physical life and with any of the energy that I brought with me from past lifetimes or from anything that was going to be helpful for my consciousness to have a hold of. I brought it with me. And all of that creates this landscape of me getting to experience my energy in any given situation. And basically, like, as I've leaned into my authenticity, like, the only thing that I'm seeing that's required for authenticity, you don't have to have the perfect words. You don't have to like get somebody else to be like, oh, now I understand you. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna behave exactly like you want me to. Like, I personally would like let go of fantasies like that one, but like what you can expect is like, what's happened is I've had this relaxing and deepening and in my own self-acceptance, like in my relationship between me and me, in my, like, I'm the parent of my own inner child, where I get to listen to little girl Carly on the inside of me, and I get to make my own adult decisions on the behalf of what's best for both of us. Like, I get to honor my whole self, and what feels right to me, what feels true for me, is allowed to be there. And that is kind of the root of self-acceptance, of like, whatever I am is okay. And whatever I am is rising naturally in any moment. You know, there's nothing to figure out. There's nothing to go out into the world and get. There's only inside of us, whether we're allowing that authentic self to come forward or not. And the reasons we don't, that's where I would point you back to that Dr. K video for maybe a little bit more help unpacking the reasons we don't, the reasons we leave the authenticity way down in there and we don't show people that side of us. We wear the mask, and when we come home, we take the mask off because it's fucking heavy. And then over time, we slowly find ourselves empty and resentful of other people, blaming other people that, like, you know, I wasted my time at that job, or I wasted my time in that marriage, and that's just never true. Like, we get what we settle for. And when we're wearing a mask, that's how we're showing up in the world is giving us what is reflected in the mask. The world can't give us like the response to our own authenticity if we're not willing to show the world the authenticity. Like, there has to be a sense of security within yourself that, like, I'm okay with who I am. And as you become okay with who you are / conscious of who you are, which is kind of step one, and then you become okay with it, over time, it just matters less and less and less that other people understand what's going on inside you. Like, I used to have that circle in my depression a lot. Like, I wore the grass down on that one of like, people don't understand me, people don't understand me, people don't understand me. Like, if only they understood me, like, why don't they understand? For like 25 years. And that felt right at that time. Like, that was the furthest version of my truth that I could reach at that time. And that was where I was. And over time, as I basically got sick of feeling like shit, like as I was done suffering, like that was the day, that was June 9th, 2016, of the day I found Abraham, the first day of a nearly 2-year streak of daily self-care. It was literally waking up that morning, like fresh out of, like waking up with this, I am so fucking tired of living like this. Either I'm gonna feel better or I'm done. And it wasn't me deciding that, it was like almost receiving this openness of, I'm ready to see if there's a better way. I've tried my way and I'm done with it, and I'm ready to be shown a different way. And enter Abraham Hicks and the law of attraction, which for me was the perfect language and vocabulary and system of like basically learning how to follow your own emotional guidance that led me straight into myself. And obviously that was, okay, so that's the middle of 2016, and it wasn't even until the beginning of 2021 that I'm having the year of speaking truth. So like, again, authenticity comes on in layers. Or maybe like the shields that we have against our own authenticity come off in layers. So it really just depends. But anytime I feel like I need to hold part of myself back, in my mind, that's an invitation in to that part to understand where that self-judgment is coming from. Again, totally internally. Like, it's not about getting anybody else to see anything. It's me understanding, like, adult parent Carly, why are you judging and being mean to little girl Carly? You're saying, nope, same as my grandma. Carly, that doesn't sound nice. Like, why are you doing that to yourself? Why? Where does the self-judgment come from? Is there conditioning at play? Either from your parents or society at large, marketing. I mean, like, you can't avoid it. Like, it's the culture we grow up in. So like, part of everybody's conditioning is their culture. And that's just baked into who we are, and like our generation's insecurities, and like all of those things are informed by the world that we grow up in. So understanding why we hold ourselves back, like, it's a process that I do think, like, to get to a place where you're owning your authenticity, there has to be an acceptance of your shadow, of like, there are parts of myself where I don't like them as well as other parts. Like there are, and it seems like the further I get into my authenticity journey, it's like the more stuff comes up out of my memory, out of my past, where I had like blocked out things because I felt so guilty about what I had done, which like if I told you what they were, of course, like, you know, like everything's relative. Like I didn't kill anybody. I wasn't murdering people at random, stepping on puppies, things like that. Like it wasn't like that. But I felt so bad about the choices I made and the things that I did that I just put it away. And so the further I get into my authenticity journey, those things, they come up and they're like, you know, basically practicing authenticity is practicing accepting your whole self. And so like heading into like exploring your authentic self, you're inviting your shadow to come out of the basement, come back up into the main level and be a part of the family, you know, come out of timeout, like end the punishment. It's all happening inside of ourselves. And the reasons we wear the masks that we do is like, there's a lack of self-acceptance. There's a lack of self-security. Like when we're people pleasing, we're depending on them for our security. That's why we can't upset them. That's generally true, and yet I feel like as a people pleaser, way back when that was like kind of my dominant mode, it's like, but then I found myself like people pleasing even when I don't need to. Like, I mean, there's no risk in pissing this person off. Like it became like everybody, like I can't make anybody mad, even when they have no power over my experience. Just even them thinking badly about me was like, oh, I can't, I don't know how, I don't want to, I can't. But yeah, that was like me being like vacant of love for myself and needing that validation from other people. And that need of validation for other people, it definitely comes off in layers. It's not solved all at once, I don't think. I can only say that I am absolutely like 4,000% more authentic than I was at this time last year. And going back even further, I mean, the percentage change just gets bigger the further back you want to look at my starting point. And I expect, this is the cool part about that, I expect the pattern to continue. So I'm like, who's she gonna be when it's 2023? Who's she gonna be at age 40? I've been saying for like a decade that I think I'm gonna be like the coolest 40-year-old that's ever lived. And I don't know, I'm not there yet. That's still years into the future. But like the way that it's going, it just gets better and better and better and better. And I'm looking at like a 10-year track record of year after year after year after year after year. And it just gets better and better. And so much of that is going deeper and deeper and deeper into myself and who am I and who even is my authentic Carly? Like, what even does that mean? Again, challenges of being highly mutable. Maybe if you're like super fixed or whatever, you have this like super ingrained identity. There is no question about who you are. You just feel it. This is who I am. Like there are people in the world who basically cannot put on a mask. I personally think that's one of the best gifts that autistic people have brought to this planet, is that they have a much harder time putting on your mask. Like they have a much harder time ignoring when they're uncomfortable, when their system isn't working right. It's a bigger deal, and that's good for all of us. I think it like leads the way and kind of teaches us all how to lean into being less capable of being so malleable that, you know, there are definitely moments where that skill can help you. There are particular moments where negotiation and finding a middle ground like is absolutely what's necessary. But like I said, I had definitely fallen into a rut of like, that was just my dominant operating mode. And I was so full of resentment that it was like bordering into rage. And I don't want that. I've tried my way. It didn't work. I'm done with my way. Either you have a better way or I'm done. And that was like the day that I feel like my spiritual awakening basically happened, like that day. And it really was like I was done with the suffering that came from wearing a mask and from being unable to stand up for myself when myself needed standing up for. I was ready to show up to that job. And what ended up happening is like life ends up reflecting to you that you're no longer willing to sit silent and uncomfortable in situations where your soul knows that's wrong. You know, you can feel it. You can feel discord. And when you stay silent in that moment, when you ignore it, you try to just like push it away and carry on. How Dr. K put it in terms of the karmic sense is you're sowing a karmic debt. You're putting that pain off until later. You're just delaying the inevitable. Like basically we wear the mask because we're avoiding pain in the present moment. We're telling somebody what they want to hear so that they react nicely so that we don't have to endure their harsh reaction. And again, former people pleaser, I'm like, all of this is definitely along where I started. And all we can ever do is practice like, you know, putting one more foot forward in front of where we are right now. He goes into this towards the end of the video of like, you know, forget all of the different things in the past that like you were inauthentic and now, you know, people think wrong things about you. Like, don't worry about like going back and correcting all of that. That maybe needs to eventually happen, but like, don't even think about that right now. Right now, focus on like right now, today, how could I be just like 1% more authentic than I was yesterday? I'm a big proponent of like little incremental changes. Like we're not talking about like an explosion of self-revelation where you just like outline the full gamut, but it's like, can you say like one sentence? And again, I'm like very much where I started, like giving myself my own advice. Like, can you say one sentence today and tomorrow and the next day that's a little bit more authentic than how you would have phrased it before? And before what? Like, you know, before, I don't know, whatever. Doesn't matter. I think you guys get it. I think you guys get what I'm saying. Those of you that are still watching, maybe you are resonating. Maybe you are picking up what I'm putting down. I don't know. I just felt like rambling. I felt like giving myself some space to hear myself out. And I do think that there's definitely some material in here that I can edit and put out for a video. I also have a surprise treat for you as far as like, I thought it was kind of funny, my mic checks, like just giving you a glimpse behind the scenes and into real life. And like, as I do my mic checks and just like how silly it looks when you really look back at it, the way that I do mic checks is definitely informed by like how my microphone has failed in the past. And so like figuring it out and doing it better and doing it better. And as myself changes, the way I show up changes, right? And like, I personally am working on healing, and I'm healing more and more every day, my wound of trying to be seen as consistent and reliable in this world over portraying my own authentic self. I'm very much grounding into allowing myself to be who I am, as I am, day to day. As I learn and I evolve, I allow that process to carry me forward towards new people, away from old people. It doesn't matter. Like it all is happening in accordance with my own divine path. And the more I allow myself to be as I am, the better life gets. The more the world is reflecting that to me. Basically, the more I love myself, the more the world loves me. And I don't know if that happens for everybody. I would love to hear your thoughts down below. But all I can really do is say what's true for me. And this has been an episode of that. So more on this at some point in the future. Like I said, authenticity like really gets me going. Hot for authenticity, you know what I mean? And now this. This is a sound check. Sound check. Sound check. Sound check, sound check, sound check. This is a sound check. Sound check, sound check, sound check, sound check, sound check. This is one more sound check, 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 sound check.